Okay, so I just want to kind of go over how I color graded this clip that I'm going to post on Instagram story or somewhere in the post. But basically it's just a clip of me taking a picture for Instagram, so just how I make my Instagram content. You can see here, it's just a video. I filmed it with my iPhone. There's a video. I'll run it through here, you guys can see. So it's just me taking pictures, right? Pretty simple. It's filmed on my iPhone, so it's not obviously the greatest quality, but this is what it looks like before the color grade, and then this is what it looks like after. So you can tell there's quite a bit of difference, right? Now if you're a beginner in color grading, just know that it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of practice. I still don't really know 100% exactly the right way to color grade, but I'll kind of show you guys what I do. So basically I start with an adjustment layer, which is downloadable, and I put on a base correction, pull it out to the end of this. Here, I'll turn off the, so start with the base correction, and then I throw a look grade on top of that. Now the difference between base correction and look grade, base correction is mainly just your blacks and whites, so like your exposure, so that'll change the shadows, the highlights, and then the look grade is kind of like a feel, like how you want the video to feel. So it'll be orange and teal, which I mainly go with, which I'm going to be showing you in this, or other stylistic choices like vintage. So we're going to always start with the base correction. When you apply it on top of your video, it affects everything below it. So I always put it on top instead of putting it right on the clip, because then if I want to turn it off, you can hit V and toggle it on and off. Now the first thing I do, go up here to workspaces and go color workspace. So this will pull up your scopes. We have the Luma, the RGB overlay, vector scope, RGB parade. You won't need to use all of them, but I do use a couple of them. So the first thing I do is I pull up my inspector. Let's see here. And then you go to the color tab, which is right up here. And then I add a color wheels layer. I like to work in the color wheels instead of the color board or color curves. I use all of them, but mainly the color wheels. So the first thing I look at is changing the shadows. You can see the whole image is kind of pretty bright, so we want to change the shadows. You can see right here where my mouse is at. I always like to go down to 0. That's what most YouTube videos that I watch say you should do. So I go down to 0. So you go to the shadows on the right side, pull this down to 0. You don't want to go too far below, but you can kind of tell where it stops. You can also tell on the left side here in the Luma waveform if you're going below 0 or not. So I'll go here. Next thing you want to do is adjust your highlights. So if we turn that off and on, that's where you can see the shadows. It's not a big difference, but it does make a difference in the end. So that's what changing the shadows does. Now you change the highlights. You always want it to be below 100. So for the highlights, I look at the Luma. You can always blow these up too if you want in the view. I always look at the Luma, so you always want that to be below 100, because if you go over 100, that's called complete white or something, and that kind of blows out your image. So mine looks like it's just over 100, so I'm going to pull the highlights down at just a hair until I think it's good. That didn't really do much of a difference, but it'll help when putting your look grade on at the end. So now once you have that, the midtones I kind of use as a stylistic choice. If you go up, it kind of fades the image a little more. If you go down, it kind of makes it a little bit more moody. That's kind of the way that I like it, so I pull it down just a little bit. Now that might mean you have to adjust your other ones just a hair. This means I got to bring my shadows up just a tish, and then my highlights are still good. So once you have that, that's your base correction. If I turn this on and off, you'll see that the exposures are changed. So it looks like this. Once I turn it on, it looks like that. So it just gives a little bit more contrast to the image. Now once you are done with that, you're going to go to your look grade. Once I'm on my look grade, this is mainly about colors now. So the one thing I like to do the most is what they call orange and teal. I'm sure you guys have heard of it, maybe not. That's when you add teal to your shadows and you add orange to your midtones. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to your shadows. That's the first thing I do. And I pull this just a little bit towards the teal. Now you can see if I pull it a lot, the whole image gets blue. You don't want to go that far. So you can you just want to pull it just a little bit until you see a little bit of a change, or until you think it looks good enough. I don't want to go a ton, but I'll go a little bit, just so you guys can tell. So once you have that, once I turn this on and off, you can kind of see the teal in my hat changes color. Goes from almost a black to more of a navy, light blue. Now once you have that, you're going to go into your midtones and change this to the orange. Pull this a little bit to the orange. So this make your skin tones a little bit more orange, a little bit more punchy. Teal and orange are complementary colors, so that's why That's why they use it. Makes your image look a little bit better. Once you have that, you can mess around with the temperature. I like mine to be a little bit more cool, just because that's how I like my images to be. And then it looks a little too purple for me, so the hue, I'm going to pull this a little bit to the left to pull out those magenta tones and kind of add some more greens to balance it out. And once you have that, then that's your end image. I'm good enough with this. It's just for an Instagram post, so I'm not going to go crazy with it. Obviously, if I was doing client work, I'd go into the hue saturation curves, change these a little bit. But for Instagram, I feel like this is good enough. So that's all I do for color grading. Okay, so both of these off, this is what it looks like. Throw the base correction, that's what it changes. Throw the look grade on, changes that. So I mean, it's subtle differences, but you know, it really makes a difference in the end and really kind of gives that feel to your videos. So that's basically how I color grade my videos for Instagram. Obviously, client work, it changes a little bit. It varies on how I do things, but it's basically the same exact process. If you have any questions on different tips to color grading or anything like that, let me know and I can do that for you. And I hope this helped. If you have any other questions besides color grading, I'd love to answer those too.